So, let me start with a story. Years ago in New York, I had a friend, well, I still do, 77 years old man who was an art dealer. Very sophisticated world. Private collectors, multi-million-dollar paintings, quiet negotiations that sometimes lasted months and months. In those circles, nobody hard sells, nobody pressures, and you certainly cannot impress people like that with expensive dinners or charm alone. One evening, he invited me to join him for dinner with a potential buyer. He already knew about my ability to read people, and his question to me was simple. Would this man eventually buy from him? Because my friend, JJ, had already spent a very long time courting this client. The buyer was a very wealthy man from the Middle East, extremely refined, extremely composed, the kind of man whose presence quietly changes the atmosphere the moment he enters a room. At that time, I was still very young, early 20s, and honestly, I wasn't yet the woman I am today. I hadn't learned how to emotionally prepare myself before entering important spaces like that. I hadn't learned how to fully separate observation from experience. Back then, everything still felt magical to me. Beautiful people, elegant energy, New York at night, luxury restaurants glowing in candlelight, crystal glasses, soft jazz somewhere in the background, powerful conversations happening quietly over dinner tables worth more than most people's monthly rent. I was enjoying the magic instead of studying the room. And I also didn't do my homework properly. That became our mistake. Because in the end, he never bought the painting. When he arrived, he brought a woman with him. Beautiful, elegant, very quiet, but not in the obvious way people expect beauty to enter a room. Not loud, not performative, not attention-seeking. More soft, comfortable, almost cozy. The kind of woman who feels emotionally warm instead of visually intimidating. And immediately, before anyone even sat down, I started reading her energy. She kept lowering her eyes toward the table. Now, that can mean many things. Maybe she was demonstrating cultural respect. Maybe she had learned submission around powerful men. Maybe she was emotionally disconnected from him entirely. Maybe she simply didn't want to be there at all. But women always reveal the emotional climate of the man beside them. Always. If you understand feminine nervous systems, you can read an entire relationship without hearing a single word. The dinner itself felt beautiful. The energy was light, open, refined. The men spoke casually, diplomatically, beginning with surface conversation before briefly touching the actual business negotiation for maybe 30 seconds before drifting away from it again. Everything seemed relaxed. Everything seemed perfect. And yet there was something. Very small. Almost impossible to explain logically. Like a tiny dark spot somewhere inside the energetic field around us. I remember physically feeling it near my right ear. Not enough to alarm me, just enough for my intuition to quietly pause. And despite that feeling, I was still almost completely convinced this man was going to buy the painting. Then the check arrived. Up until that moment, both men were relaxed, comfortable posture, easy conversation, slow movements. Everyone was enjoying the evening. The waiter placed the check on the table, and without even opening it, the buyer calmly reached toward his chest, unbuttoned the top of his shirt, and pulled out a military-style chain from underneath his clothing. Attached to it were two things, his ID and his black American Express card. He removed the entire chain and placed it directly onto the check tray for the waiter to take. And in that exact second, everything inside me shifted. Because suddenly, the energy no longer matched the image. This elegant, composed, powerful man, who moments earlier felt grounded, generous, calm, secure, had just unconsciously revealed another part of himself entirely. And I remember sitting there thinking, why would a man like that wear his money and identity physically against his chest? What is he protecting? What is he afraid of losing? And that, my loves, is where tonight's conversation truly begins. Now, before I continue this story, I want you to tell me honestly in the comments, what would that moment make you feel? What would your intuition tell you if you saw a man like that, wealthy, powerful, elegant, pull a black American Express from a military chain hanging around his neck? Would it make you trust him more? Less? Would it make you feel safety, control, fear, power, insecurity? Because I can promise you something. Every woman watching this felt something in that moment. And I want to know what your nervous system picked up. So while you're writing your answer in the comments, I'm going to let the commercial play right here for 1 minute. And honestly, thank you for that. People sometimes forget that YouTube creators are able to create these conversations because advertisers support the platform. So while you're watching the ad and writing your thoughts, you're genuinely supporting this channel, these episodes, and allowing me to continue creating deeper conversations like this for women all over the world. So thank you. And now, let's continue. Because what happened next completely changed the way I understood this man. All of these possibilities came to me almost instantly. Not like logical thoughts, not like words, like information, visual information. Sometimes when this happens, people notice my expression change for a few seconds. I suddenly look distant, almost lost, almost like I'm staring through someone instead of at them. But I'm not disconnected. I'm receiving information. The best way I can describe it is this. It feels like scanning an entire photo album in 2 seconds. Very fast, very layered, very intuitive. And I think many women experience this more than they realize, but most were never taught to trust it. Because very often intuition is simply your nervous system processing information faster than your logical mind can explain it. So while I was sitting there watching him, all these psychological possibilities started moving through me almost simultaneously. The first thing I thought was, maybe this man does not feel emotionally safe around money. And I don't mean financially unsafe, I mean emotionally unsafe. Because when somebody physically keeps their identity and access to wealth directly on their body, close to the chest, close to the heart, sometimes that reveals a very deep subconscious fear of loss, almost like the nervous system cannot fully relax. Then another possibility appeared in my mind: control. Some people become extraordinarily successful because they control everything around them constantly. Their environment, their image, their money, their access, their vulnerability. And sometimes the calmest people externally are actually managing enormous internal tension silently. Then another image came to me. Maybe this wasn't insecurity at all. Maybe this was survival conditioning, not emotional drama, real survival psychology. Because many powerful men, especially men from politically unstable environments, military backgrounds, high-risk business cultures, or extremely competitive masculine environments, develop habits where security becomes physically attached to the body. Documents close to the chest, money close to the body, constant awareness of danger, betrayal, loss, escape. The nervous system remembers survival long after the danger disappears. Then another layer entered my mind: status. Because let's be honest, a black American Express hanging around the neck is symbolic too. It almost looked like a medal, like an unconscious statement to the world. This is who I am. This is my power. This is my access. And when money becomes emotionally connected to identity, that tells you something extremely important psychologically. Then another possibility crossed my mind. What if this man simply trusted nobody? Not the hotel safe, not assistants, not the people around him, not even the environment itself. Because hyper-successful people often become psychologically isolated. The more people want access to you, the harder it becomes to feel truly safe around human beings. And then another thought entered my mind too. What if this had nothing to do with fear at all? What if this man was simply so consumed by his mission, his ideas, his world, his pursuit, that practicality became more important than presentation? Because sometimes highly intelligent, hyper-focused people stop performing sophistication completely. Convenience becomes more important than elegance. Efficiency becomes more important than image. Honestly, I could absolutely imagine someone like Elon Musk walking into a dinner wearing shorts, distracted by his own thoughts, with a black American Express hanging from a chain simply because it was practical. And somehow, people would immediately believe it on him. Because his external energy already matches obsession, intensity, eccentricity, mission. And honestly, that guest could have been exactly like that too. Which is why true intuition also requires humility. Because sometimes we are right, sometimes we project, and sometimes human beings are simply more psychologically complex than one single moment can explain. But what fascinated me most was this. Through one tiny unconscious gesture, this elegant, composed, sophisticated man revealed an entire hidden emotional world underneath the surface. And this is where the story became even more interesting. Because my mistake was not that I couldn't read him correctly. I actually understood him almost immediately. But I understood him through her. You see, the woman sitting next to him was not the most beautiful woman in the room. Earlier, during dinner, the men had been casually exchanging family photos, talking about children, wives, life. At one point, he even proudly showed photos of all 4 of his wives. And every single one of those women was breathtakingly beautiful. Very polished, very feminine, very elegant. But the woman sitting beside him that evening was different. She was softer, quieter, less performative. And then I saw the way she looked at him, and more importantly, the way he looked back at her. That was the moment I understood the chain. That was the moment I understood what kind of man he truly was underneath the power. Because she would lower her eyes not out of weakness, but because she understood the room. She understood that her role was not to dominate the energy, not to interrupt negotiations, not to compete for attention. She was regulating the emotional atmosphere for him. And occasionally she would glance at him quietly, and he would answer her with this warmth in his eyes that completely changed the entire psychological picture for me. Suddenly, I realized she was his nervous system. Just like I was there reading energy for my friend, she was there reading energy for him. She was his soft place, his emotional cloud, his place to dissolve, his place to rest from the constant pressure of power, status, responsibility, image, control. And in that exact moment, the chain around his neck no longer looked paranoid to me. It looked symbolic. A man who carries the weight of identity, money, status, security, responsibility directly on his chest also needed softness directly beside his heart. And she gave him that. That's what I missed at first. But now let me tell you where we actually failed. Because the reason he never bought the painting had nothing to do with the chain. The real mistake was me. If I had done my homework properly, if I had fully understood who our client was, his culture, his values, his religious background, the psychology of the world he came from, I would have arrived completely differently. At the time, I was around 25 years old, world champion belly dancer, young, beautiful. My body radiated sexuality, confidence, vitality, youth. And I arrived at that dinner in a stunning evening gown. But it was very open, deep neckline, bare shoulders, a long fitted dress with a dramatic slit, fishnet stockings, very high heels, sensual, elegant by Western standards, but still extremely sensual. And the friend I came with, this sophisticated older art dealer, back then was in his early 60s. In heels, I was towering over him. So what image did I unconsciously create the moment we walked into that restaurant? Not trusted advisor, not energy reader, not psychological observer. No. The image I created was an older, wealthy man bringing a glamorous, young, doll-like mistress to dinner with an important client. And that matters. Perception matters. Because people judge the room long before business begins. That potential buyer had no idea I was there professionally, and in 1 second, my appearance lowered my friend's authority in the eyes of that man. Then there was another layer, cultural respect. Over the years, I've spent a lot of time in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, learning, asking questions, studying traditions, psychology, social codes, feminine energy within different cultures. And I already knew these things. I knew that in many traditional Muslim environments, women present themselves differently out of respect for the atmosphere and the people present. Even in Dubai, women tourists are often encouraged to cover shoulders, wear more elegant silhouettes, softer presentation, closed-toe shoes in certain settings. And I knew that. But at 25, I still approached the evening through a Western lens, through beauty, through glamour, through feminine confidence. And unintentionally, I communicated the wrong message entirely. In our culture, women are encouraged to dress provocatively, to express themselves freely, to be visually striking. But this was not my culture, not his environment, not his psychological framework. And without realizing it, I made us look unserious. That was the real failure. Not intuition, not psychology, perception. Be very careful before judging another human being, because while you are reading people, they are reading you too. Constantly, and usually much faster than you think. That is the true purpose behind learning energy, intuition, nervous system awareness, feminine presence. Not manipulation, not performance, not those ridiculous internet videos teaching you, if he scratches his nose, he's lying. If she looks left, she's cheating. No, that is not what I teach. I teach women how to understand energy, how to strengthen their own nervous system, how to develop intuition, how to feel emotional atmospheres, how to protect their inner world without becoming cold. I call it the soap bubble, an energetic field around you, a psychological and emotional atmosphere that people feel before you even speak. Because human beings are energetic by nature, every molecule inside your body contains vibration. Every atom is mostly empty space, yet somehow filled with invisible energy constantly moving, vibrating, transmitting information. And your nervous system broadcasts energy the same way. Fear vibrates, confidence vibrates, neediness vibrates, Calmness vibrates. Sensuality vibrates. Safety vibrates. And just like you train your body in the gym, you can train your cells, your energy, your nervous system, your intuition to vibrate differently too. And once you do, the entire world starts responding to you differently. That is it for tonight, my dear ones. This was Always Yours, KATARA Lilith. And I will see you next week. Till then.